All right, back on topic. How many of you have been to an AI talk recently and you went, oh my God, another really generic AI talk? Anybody? Okay, this is not going to be one of those. I can absolutely promise that. This is going to be an exciting story of how Gen AI has been used to do some really interesting real world things, amongst a bunch of really interesting things from Joe. So Joe was a founding product person at Space Ape Games, makers of the top grossing game Beatstar and the car game Chrome Valley Customs. Joe is now CEO of Two Up Games, a 7-person game studio focused on using Gen AI to unlock player creativity. Welcome, Joe, to do an amazing AI talk.
Thank you. No pressure at all. Okay, hi guys. I'm going to be talking about the last couple of years that we've been using AI to make mobile video games. I'm from New Zealand, so that means, like all New Zealanders, I had a pet goat. And in some mysterious circumstances, I ended up in London as the founding product person at Space Ape Games. Now, Space Ape Games has made over $500 million over its lifetime. Oh, I don't need the notes, just the slides big would be awesome, thanks. Thank you. It's made over $500 million over its lifetime. We've reached 180 million players, and I was at the studio when it was 10 people, and we grew all the way to 120 people, which is where it is at the moment. And when I came back to New Zealand 5 years ago, I started Two Up Games, and I swear we have reached at least 1,800 people and had at least $5 in revenue. So what have we been doing over the last time? We've been making mobile free-to-play games. And if you don't know anything about that, that's absolutely totally fine. It's not a prerequisite for the talk. We've been trying to find product market fit. And for the last 2 years of that time, we've been doing it using generative AI as part of our tool set. So this is what we've been doing. But I think I might be the only person who's in this little intersection here. But good news, if you're interested in any of these things or goats, this talk is for you. So it's broken up into 5 different sections. And because you're such a lovely and astute audience, I'm going to do what game makers do and give you a little bit of endowed progress. We're done with the introduction. And now we're moving on to section 2, which is mobile game economics. Now, you probably think of games as a relatively new industry, mobile free-to-play games, and it's new-ish. And you probably think it's growing. And that's kind of true. Up to 2021, where we had COVID, we saw the industry surpass $100 billion in global revenue, so a moderately sized industry. So you think this is a big pie. Awesome. And it's growing. Amazing. So to make games, maybe we just kind of play all day and games arrive, and product management is not really something we think about. But that's not true. It wasn't true 15 years ago when I started working on games as a service, and it certainly isn't true now as this pie has started to shrink. It's a mature market now, and we are fighting for users, and it is really, really hard. And so product management, all these things we've been talking about in the problem space and figuring out how you're going to connect with users' needs, although they do it for entertainment, these players have needs. And so it's a mature $100 million market. And it's also in this business-to-consumer space, which only 13% of us are familiar with. And so us as product managers look a little bit more like this. We like equations. We have all of this complicated business-to-consumer maths that you may or may not be familiar with. So I'm going to recap it for you really quickly. We love lifetime value, the value of a user over time. If they spend $1 on day one, another $1 on the second week, and another $1 at the end of their first year, and then they churn $3 lifetime value. That's the value of the user over time. Awesome. And if lifetime value can be higher than the cost to get that user, we call it CPI, but you may know it as CAC or CPA. That's the cost of getting a new user on a given day. That's kind of catchy. I really like this equation because although it's small, it means if you can earn more money off someone than it costs to get them, then you have a machine that you can replicate. And when that's going out on Google Play and when it's going out on the App Store to hundreds of millions of players worldwide, you can replicate that really largely. And that's how you get these billion-dollar-a-year games, $2 billion-a-year games. And a lot of it comes through this one equation, and it's very close to my heart. And when I think about it, I just kind of want to break into song. So that's what I'm going to do now. We need our LTV above CPI, and that ain't hard while we're growing the pie. LTV above CPI, and that ain't hard while we're growing the pie. You might know CPI is CAC or CPA, the cost of getting a new user on a given day. LTV's the value of that user over time, the money they spend with you over your lifetime. When returns come in more than dollars they burn, players make us money, it's time to earn.
LTV above CPI,
And that ain't hard while we're growing the pie.
LTV above CPI.
No, that ain't hard while we're growing the pie. Let's look at LTV.
Yeah, you know me.
But how to make money when we sell it for free? In-app purchases keep the cash flowing, but retention's what matters, keep the numbers growing. From day 1 to day 90 through to 365, keep them playing, keep them paying, keep the dream alive. LTV. Wait, the pie ain't growing. The mobile games market is slowing. Teams are getting larger, but we're still small. Turns out a USP doesn't help at all.
We need our LTV above CPI.
But that's real hard with a shrinking pie.
Our LTV above CPI.
We need to find an edge, maybe AI. Find an edge, maybe AI. Okay, so that's all the singing in this presentation. What I hope you got from that is mobile games is a mature market. And it's really hard for a small studio of 7 people to compete with studios that are 70 people, 140 people, 210 people globally. And when we just had a project that we worked on not come to fruition, our CPI was too high, no matter what we tried to do. We were trying to figure out what to do next to allow us to compete as a small studio as the competition got fiercer and fiercer. And we saw this beautiful wave coming in. Not only was it exciting, but we felt maybe the wave of generative AI could wash some blue ocean into what is a very red space. 10,000, 20,000 different apps being released every year, and we're competing with not only them, but Netflix and everything else per player eyeballs. We're like, what if we were the person riding the wave, not the person being washed up? What if generative AI could give us the edge as a small studio to be able to compete in this increasingly competitive market? And we decided that's what we wanted to do. But how are we going to do it? Like, generative AI is just kind of a tool, and we don't even know how it works. And we don't even know what customer needs it could potentially enable. So we're like, well, maybe we could learn by shipping. And so we set ourselves the task of learning by shipping. That's section 3 of the talk, learning by shipping. We've got 2 units of progress now. And we did. Within 3 months, we had this. So this is a game called What the Drawer, where it takes your sketches, whatever they look like, and transforms them into beautiful, or at least interesting, artwork made with generative AI. And it did this in real time. So it would take users' inputs and then transform it. And in 3 months' time, we had learned a lot. And I'm going to share you what we'd learned from doing this. The first one is that generative AI can be inconsistent. And if you as a player are investing your precious leisure time to draw something, and you get something that isn't quite right back, you're not going to feel super duper happy about that. So we decided to embrace and roll with inconsistency. We would give players back 4 different images, each made in a slightly different style, so that at least one of them normally is wiped. So normally we get about an 80% hit rate, and someone could do the maths around 4 times whatever it is. I need to cover that up really quickly because a lot of people are scared of spiders. We also had people in our team who were scared of generative AI. especially artists. It's like when image generation is happening in an instant, like, what can I do with my job? And of course, the answer is so many things, including using generative AI as a tool. So we got everyone on the team to use it themselves and come up with novel ways of using it. And over time, our artists were able to embrace generative AI as a tool, which is really important because it doesn't matter if you could be working towards product market fit. If you don't have product market team fit, you're never going to win, especially if it's in a competitive space. Finally, we had questions around how much it would cost to run it and if we are able to create a consistent service. So we spun up our own server farm, and we were able to keep that up without it going down once for an entire year. We were also concerned around the cost of image generation, and we were able to, with our own servers, bring down the cost of image generation 20 times versus what was currently available on the market. So cost and stability, like one of the things that we wondered about, like, is this even worth getting into this place as a game studio? Will this just scupper it? We learned that it wasn't nearly as bad as we had feared. But as we're a room of product people, and I am one of those too, we couldn't just kind of do a tech demo. So on week one, we started talking to potential customers for an AI-empowered drawing game. We had this idea that there might be something there. And we got a couple of interesting leads back. The first one's really unsurprising. It was early days in generative AI, and people were like, I kind of just want to try it. I want to see what it's like. I want to see what my drawings would be like if they were transformed. The second one, for me, is far more interesting. There were people out there who wanted more creativity in their lives. But just like my daughter, when she didn't like her drawing, they would scrunch it up and throw it in the bin and say, I'm terrible at drawing. There was a lot of negative self-talk that was stopping players from having the creativity that they wanted to do. And when we talked about improving your drawing with generative AI, this unexpected result came through. One, that we started to understand that there were people who wanted to be more creative, but there was some form of blocker. And two, that maybe this product could give them permission to do that. And so we thought about both of these needs and we're like, well, why don't we put something out into the market? When we're going to put a kind of tech demo that we're learning about, why don't we package this up into a place of user acquisition, put it into the space where we can measure its cost per install against fully fledged products? And can we take these two ideas and condense it into a marketing idea that will run through it? And we came up with this line that anyone can create a masterpiece. This was like anyone can draw, anyone can create a masterpiece. And we made this ad. And it's not a great ad, but I'll let you see it. So the question with any piece of user acquisition creative is not, does it look nice or does it show things off, but how effective is it at getting users in a really competitive marketplace? And we got a 50-cent CPI on this one, which is 10 times cheaper than our last game. So we're out celebrating, like 50-cent CPI is absolutely amazing. And so we had this tech demo that it's kind of appealing to people, and we have some idea and we've done some amount of customer discovery on it. Like, maybe this is going to be our rocket ship and we can pile onto this. It wasn't the intention, but maybe we can. But remember, there's two sides to that song and there's two sides to the equation. There's the CPI and there's the LTV. Now, measuring lifetime value is a science all of itself, and it requires a relatively mature product, one that people want to spend money on. It requires often more than what we wanted to launch after 3 months of time. So you're looking for an early indicator of LTV. And a prerequisite for players spending money over their lifetime is that they stick around. So when we talk about LTV for the rest of this talk, I'm really going to be talking about this indicator, which is retention. How many players come back for a second session on another day? Now, day one retention should be somewhere between 40 and 60% for a casual game like this. 40 to 60% of players should come back the next day. And it was 20%, which sucked. And so, yeah, we're at this point where I want you to imagine yourself as product manager here going like, yeah, we'd set out to learn. That was the goal of this project. And we've learnt heaps. Awesome. There's a low CPI, and these things don't come along that often, but one of your other metrics starts. Like, what do you do? Well, what we did was we did B, and we did not move the metric. We spent another 3 months iterating on it, and we had some idea around the customer needs, but they weren't super duper ultra clear, and it was hard to move this. But we liked the challenge, and we liked this idea around empowering player creativity. That's something that we could do as a company. And we took that on, and that became our mission. Not to use technology, but to empower player creativity and know that there's this new blue space, this new piece of blue ocean that's been enabled by this technology. So we became, once again, a mission-driven company, a player mission-driven company. And that was cool. But why was it so hard? Well, one of the reasons it was so hard is we were in this super-duper ultra-fresh space. You probably haven't heard about the fresh and fresh formula for success because it often isn't. As well as using new technology and having new types of gameplay and having a new metagame around what we were doing, we didn't have a clear reference game to build upon. There was no like, hey, it's this game plus X formula. And so it became really, really hard to talk to the sorts of players who'd be playing a game. It became hard to have that loop around showing it to potential players who are actually in our target market and getting that feedback. And so we're like, we do need to get out of here now. We spent another 3.5 months trying to move this metric. Now we need to use this tech, use our mission, and do it properly. And so here we get into fourth section of the talk, the fresh and familiar formula. Now, fresh and familiar, I like maybe even more than LTV being above CPI, but sorry/relieved, there's no song about it. It's just a story. This game, Clash of Clans, 12 years ago, was the biggest game in the world. And I was working at this startup games company in London called Space Ape Games, and we had just shelved our first product. It just wasn't going to work. And we looked at Clash of Clans and we were like, maybe we could make something a bit like that. It's super duper ultra popular and it's the type of game that we would like to make, and we kind of understand what the players are like. But are there any unmet needs? And it turns out there were two. It wasn't out on Android yet. It was only out on iPhone. This seems inconceivable, but it was a different time, a dozen years ago. And the other thing is players that we talked to and players that we looked at on forums really wanted to do one thing in Clash of Clans. It was to take their clan and fight another clan. They wanted to be competitive. Just like we wanted to be competitive with cheering, these clans wanted to be competitive at smashing each other's bases. And the clans couldn't actually clash in Clash of Clans. And we're like, okay, two unmet needs, Android and clans that clash. And we made a game called Samurai Siege. When we made and launched Samurai Siege, that allowed us to scale from $0 in revenue to tens of millions of dollars in the year revenue run rate, go from 12 people up to 50 people. It was an instant success on the back of knowing and understanding these customer needs, but also really, really understanding the players of Clash of Clans. And what did Supercell, the makers of Clash of Clans, make of this? Well, if you Google Space Ape, an article will come up from last week where they finally completed the acquisition of Space Ape for hundreds of millions of dollars. So that worked really well for us at Space Ape, and it worked really well for me. And so I wanted to take this formula back to Up Games. So could we find something that was the right sort of match for us, for our team, for a company that had released one of the world's first games using generative AI, but still pretty small, but we are able to meet and really, really do a good job of meeting those customer needs. We didn't just find one, we found two games. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. We're going to use this lens of fresh and familiar to talk about what we did and what the outcome was. So the first game was this, My Perfect Hotel. Now, some of you may have even played this because it spent a couple of months on the top download charts. Now, you can see the graphics aren't super flash. It's the sort of thing that a 7-person team in New Zealand and Australia can make. But it's a really, really fun game to play. Not only because you're operating your hotel, but that promise, My Perfect Hotel, means it's something that you can make and customize and make it feel you're right. In truth, these guys are using the IKEA furniture effect. You kind of just follow the template and make very limited creative choices when you're making this hotel. So when we talked to these players, the number one thing that they wanted, surprise, surprise, was more customization. It's like, let me make more choices to make this hotel really my own. And we're like, more customization, eh? Well, maybe we can do something like that. And so this is our game that we made called Go Bills, Design Your Town. And in this case, it's a town building game, but when it comes to choosing what sort of shop you have, there are hundreds of options. So again, we use generative AI to make this customer need possible, the desire to express more choice in what you build. So we made some pretty cool tools. And it could do things like, well, not just are you into cats, but what breed of cats are you into? An anime style? Or if you're going to have a fox-like logo, is it Art Deco, or is it modern, or is it horror? And how do we do? Well, within 3 months, we had launched a version onto the App Store so we could start measuring these two metrics, LTV and CPI. To start measuring LTV, we're just looking at minute-on-minute retention to begin with in a game like this, and is it stacking up against what it should be in the genres? And it was looking pretty good. But we started to worry around our second biggest assumption, or maybe the first one, which is if others had seen that this genre was taking off, are they piling into this space too? It should be a low cost per install genre, but had that changed? And the answer was, yeah. We knew we could probably support a 75-cent cost per install. Like we could get more than that in LTV, but no matter how we tried, we couldn't get it below $2. So we got this early indication that actually this fertile-looking space was not so easy to acquire users anymore, and our USP, in this case, like having more choices, wasn't enough to push CPI into a good territory. So we abandoned that game. In parallel, though, we'd been working on another game. And this one's based on a game called BitLife. BitLife is the #1 text-based life simulator game on mobile. And if that sounds strange to you, that's okay, because it is a pretty strange game, but it's also really cool and phenomenally successful. So I'm going to let her explain what BitLife, this game that we wanted to take and add something to, is all about.
It says you're supposed to start a life, make choices, and face the consequences. You have an opportunity to kiss Travis Reynolds. I mean, he is really cute, so let's do this. He smelled like moldy yogurt. I mean, apparently I'm really into that because I have a great time. Isaac, it's time for some mother-daughter bonding, so let's get up to some mischief. Yes, let's absolutely throw snowballs at people. You might have noticed that I'm really rich and famous at this point.
Okay, so that's BitLife. And if someone said a game like that has 120 million downloads and is making $80 million a year combined through IAP and in advertising, you'd be like, huh? And there's only really one of these games. And we were like, we can do that. We can reach that level of graphical quality. But what do these players want? So we did the same thing. We looked at forums and we talked to players of this game. We use various platforms that allow us to reliably talk to players of this game and make sure that we're talking to the right target customers. And they all asked for the same thing repeatedly, which is, I want to live in different worlds, in different fantasy worlds. Like if you imagine walking into a bookshop, picking up any like popular genre and say like, I want to live in the world of Harry Potter, but also like have babies and have an occupation. Maybe I want to become something like an aura. And we're like, okay, cool. Maybe we can do that. In fact, we've had some experiments using real-time AI and storytelling that means that maybe we can do that. So we launched BitLife pretty quickly. So I think everyone can kind of see where the formula is going here. Go after into Magic School, Vampire City. And what did it have? It had promising-looking LTV stats and promising-looking cost per install stats. Whoa, interesting. Woohoo! But as we were making this game, like part of the promise was we want to be able to spin up entire worlds that you can play within and simulate what you're in with generative AI. And we developed some really, really cool tooling. But the problem was, as we were getting this game out, we were finding ourselves as a team doing more and more manual content creation, which is a sign that the AI tools that we had for making it weren't kind of up to snuff. And if we didn't have those tools, then how could we scale to like one house in a magical world rather than like being able to live this big world? So we looked at these tools, and I'm going to show you like one of them that I used just this week. I need to explain a class of product managers how our AI tooling works. And it can do some pretty amazing things. It can create a storylet, or this tooling magic wand. It can create a storylet around you set in this magical world, enchanting AI for beginners. You can see there's a thing here that says illusion, use simple illusions. This is actually a requirement of a stat that you have in the game. You need to have a certain level of illusion stat for that option to come up, which is really super duper cool. It's deeply integrating with our game content. You can choose that one, and it will change some of my player stats. Just like that moldy kiss with Travis changed some of her happiness stats. This is changing your fame, your illusion, your happiness. It's a pretty amazing tool that we built, but it's just like one section of the world. And so when it came to, can we deliver on this promise of spinning up entire worlds to live within, we spent a month looking at this really hard, and our conclusion was that it would take a year's worth of research and development to be able to deliver on the player promise. So although metrics that are showing that if we could do it, we probably have a business here, this time of a year's worth of R&D is just not something that us in our current, it's just not something that we could do. So we had to shelve that project too. What we're working on now is called Get Crafty. We should have an MVP of that out in next month, but I just want to share one story from some of the customer research we're doing. We get really, really early versions, and we get target players to come in and play. And at the beginning, it had a drawing interface, like what the draw. And we're like, of course you're going to want to draw these Pinterest-worthy crafts, right? You want to have full control. But we kept hearing from the players who are crafty players, kind of females aged 30 to 55, often in the Midwest. They're just like, I can't see what's going on under my finger. And it's like, of course you can. Like with my little fingers, I can see what's going on. No, I just can't see what's going on. I wish I could use a stylus. And it's like, stylus, what's going on? We realized as a team that a lot of crafty people who are drawn to playing this game have larger fingers than me, larger fingernails than me, and sometimes fake fingernails. And so us playing this game ourselves was not giving an accurate representation of how our players would play it. So doing a bunch of early research, and we're very, very happy with how it is shaping up in Get Crafty using stencils as the input method. So look out for that soon-ish. And now we are at the final stage of this talk, the finale. I'm going to talk a little bit about the future. Spent most of the time talking about the past, but like Goldman Sachs believes that human productivity will grow by approximately 7% over the next 10 years, and that's cool. We should take that. And most of that growth, when they talk about it, is through growth and process. And over this last 2 years of trying to achieve this mission, unleashing a player creativity, yes, we have seen our process change a bit. We've had a couple of little cool tools that I've talked about, but actually the big beats of the company, the things that have really made a huge difference, are nothing to do with AI. It's around the pursuit of product market fit, understanding what our metrics are, and seeing if the products that we are developing are moving towards those metrics that can find us success, or moving away from them, or presenting really interesting split decisions where you have to decide, oh, what are you going to do now? You're in this situation for some reason. What are you going to do next? Or leading people through the fear that comes with change, with empathy and with understanding, with trying to find product market team fit, looking for those needs out there that not only have to be met by someone, but should be met by you, because it's plausible that the story that you tell, that this team with this experience met these needs and found success. Like, that has nothing to do with AI and everything to do with product. And sometimes stumbling upon a marketing message that can come back into your game can imbue your product and can really connect with people in a way that means that not only can you feel it, but your numbers, your cost per install, your indicators that you use to see if there's demand for something are telling you that that's true too. So generative AI has changed the way that we operate as a company and the way that we do product somewhat, and it might more in the future. But what's really changed for us is what we've made, the product that we've made. None of these would have been possible without generative AI, which to me means, yeah, 7% productivity growth through improvements in process. That's really cool. maybe a little conservative, maybe us as product managers looking for needs that could not be serviced before, using this technology to do something different, not just compete in the same space. Maybe we can grow that pie even more. And if so, what an awesome time to be in product, what an awesome time to be a product manager, what an awesome time to be trying to grow the pie. Thank you very much. And connect with me on LinkedIn if you would like to. Bye.